What are the top 5 best climbs in all of cycling? That is right now here on In the Saddle. Steve Schlanger with Christian Vande. We all know that climbing is such an integral part of not only Grand Tour racing, but stage racing in general. We've had so many majestic climbs in Europe, in the U.S., all over the world. So, Christian, we wanted to get your opinion on your top 5 best climbs of all time. Let's first of all set the parameters as to how you would choose your top 5.
I'm thinking of beauty, history, difficulty, obviously, and then how much it actually changes the race. So that always goes into it. But yeah, road surface, all these kind of different things. It's deep with how within it.
Do you take into consideration a fan's perspective, what it's like to watch
100%,
the climb on TV?
100%,
okay.
Yeah. I'd say one of those would be the first or second be how much appreciation in the fans.
All right, let's get into it, beginning with number 5.
Number 5. This one you might not know so well, but I'm going to start off with the Gotthard Pass in Switzerland. Gotthard Pass is about 15 miles long. It's not really that hard, but it's about 3,000 feet change in elevation, but it's cobblestone, man. I mean, a cobblestone climb in Switzerland. It's unbelievable how they even did this much cobblestone in Switzerland. So the beauty is just absolutely spectacular. And then actually going up and having wall of snow, cobblestone while you're trying to climb for 30 kilometers.
What race is that in?
Tour of Switzerland.
It is?
Yep, Tour of Switzerland.
Okay.
Yep.
How often have you done it?
I have done it probably 5 or 6 times, and we've also come down in some ways as well. So yeah, but that is spectacular. I would say that even if you have the luxury of going over there and doing even a tourist ride, I mean, that is really cool.
So
you're speechless.
Is that something like that? I mean, you look forward to doing the climb?
I mean, usually, the Gotthard Pass, and it's back to like how my parameters is. This one usually didn't separate the race too much. It's usually not the finish line, but you usually have it within the race. Sometimes it was, but it's one of those things that you have to get up and over to get into really the meat and potatoes of some of those mountains. But yeah, it's pretty crazy.
All right, from 5 to 4, what's next?
This one is completely off the map, not really with stage racing, but I'm going to have to say the Koppenberg in Tour of Flanders. Koppenberg is a disgusting climb.
Wow.
It is average of 10%. It's not even a kilometer long, but you talk about fans' perspective, you think about what's going down in the race, fantastic. I mean, it has a maximum gradient of 20%, which is ridiculous, on cobblestones. And you mix in that, there's manure and mud in there and rain coming down.
Okay.
I mean, put it this way, we did it with George Hincapie a couple of years ago. We went and did the Tour of Flanders. And it is like the Trail of Tears going up there like this. Everyone has to walk their bikes going to you can't make it up. I mean, so that was the first time that George had ever, in his 17 years, I think he did 17 years Tour of Flanders, that he did not make it up on his bicycle, and he was so pissed off. But it is that hard, and if you don't have the right materials, you don't have a good run of speed, and how much mud is on there.
What is it like? I mean, when you have the actual race, the fans, the craziness of that atmosphere, and trying to do what you just said. I mean, you guys were doing it in a tourist ride, but in a race, when you're trying to win, that's nuts.
It is nuts. It's more just the actual. A lot of times in the race itself, it's to get to the bottom in a good position, because if you don't have a run of speed, or if you have to stop, for example, which a lot of people at the back do,
right, then
you're done. You're going to be just like us walking.
No, that climb in the Tour of Flanders, not many people would remember that there are climbs in the Tour of Flanders.
Oh yeah,
it's considered a classic every spring.
Yeah, you don't realize how much climbing there actually is in the Tour of Flanders. There's thousands and thousands of feet within the Tour of Flanders.
Absolutely.
Which is, think of fields of just smelly manure.
So appetizing.
Yeah.
So that's number 4. Number 3 would be what?
I am going to go, it's toss-up right now, but I'm just going to keep it French. I'm going to go with Mont Ventoux. Mont Ventoux, 7.8%. Top is at 6,200 feet, and climb almost all of that, 5,148 feet. And it's just a difference of where you go through there, and really the landscape around it. It's really just this massive rock in the middle of, it's not really that mountainous region. It's just anomaly around there. And then, so you go through the woods, depending on which direction you go to, but the direction that most times you see on TV, through the woods, which is really steep, hot, suffocating. And then you get up in this arid moonscape towards the top, where it can be really windy, which we saw a couple of years ago in the Tour de France, where they actually had to finish it a little bit farther down.
Yeah, and that's the stage where we had the Froome, Richie Porte crash into the motorbike, Froome carrying his bike up the hill.
Kind of hard to forget about that one. Kind of hard to forget about. And then, but usually when the race does actually finish at the top, I mean, it's the wind, it's the fans, it almost has this. A lot of times people complain of not being able to breathe so well up there, even though it's not really that high in altitude. Just there's zero vegetation. The history, Tom Simpson passing away up there. But yeah, that's got to be one of the hardest ones. And really, and of course, what you look at around there in that region.
Now, it's a spectacular view for the spectators, whether you're there or watching on TV. Do the cyclists like to see that as they're riding up?
I mean, if you're in the gruppetto, maybe you get a good chance to look around, but no, and everyone else, no. I mean, you don't really appreciate too much while you're racing anything. And not to mention, if you're in the front in the Tour de France, you're going through, it's impossible to see anything, nor hear anything, or you get back and a lot of times you have no idea what even happened in the race. You have to go watch it on TV.
Yeah, the Giant of Provence,
you got it, baby,
as it is known. So that is number 3. On to number 2.
Galibier. The Galibier. And you have to say the Galibier with the telegraph. So the Galibier with the telegraph's at the bottom. You go up over the telegraph, come down, and then go right back up. And all in all, that is 35 kilometers. That's a long way, over 20 miles. And if we put the average in, especially with a little descent after the telegraph, that's 5.5%. So it's a full ascent of over 6,000 feet. That's nasty. That's a long way. One of the higher, if not the highest, depending on what year, what vintage we have the Tour de France, at 8,700 feet. So yeah, I mean that's nasty. We even did it in the Giro one year. We couldn't even get too much farther to the top because it was 6 feet of snow on the road.
It's one of the oldest climbs they've done too, I think, right?
One of the highest passes was paved.
Right.
Still have the tunnel that goes through there. And talk about views.
Yeah.
You get up there on a beautiful day, the views are just for miles and miles and miles, and really just in that whole triangle right around there with Alpe d'Huez right down the road, all these different amazing climbs that are steeped in tradition. You could really just have this Bermuda Triangle of different climbs that you could just knock off one at a time.
Speaking of knocking them off, we've knocked off 4, and we're down to number 1.
I hate to disappoint, just give a little teaser towards Alpe d'Huez, but I'm not going to hit Alpe d'Huez. I'm going to go to Stelvio.
No Alpe d'Huez?
No Alpe d'Huez.
Not even in the top 5?
No Alpe d'Huez. I mean, I absolutely love Alpe d'Huez, and it's so much fun to go up, but I really just wanted to have this fun and think about different climbs that you wouldn't automatically go to. There's a lot of them, obviously, that are off the list that are really close, of course. I mean, again, same thing like all these, just like the Juries, all these different kinds. We could go for on and on and on because there's so many different climbs. But Stelvio, man, I mean, it's spectacular. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. I mean, Stelvio, here's some of the stats of Stelvio. It's over 15 miles long, 7.5%. Top is at 9,100 feet, so you still have an ascent of 6,000 feet. It's brutal up there.
I remember in the Giro a few years ago when you were pacing Ryder Hesjedal, who was leading the race at that time. You guys were in pursuit of Thomas de Gent, who had broken away. He was up the road. And I mean, you were at the front for what seemed like an eternity. What was going through your mind, knowing you're on that classic climb, knowing what was at stake, too, with the race, and the team had the overall leader in its ranks?
Well, one of the climbs that I left off the list, the Mortirolo, we just had ascended and descended right there before that. So I actually had to stop and wait for Ryder's group and bring them because I was in the breakaway that day. So I stuffed my face with Cokes and gels and food while I waited for them, and that's probably saved my life actually, and be able to. But yeah, that was a spectacular day. We knew it was on the line. It was a day that Ryder was my teammate and roommate that year, and we woke up. We said nothing to each other just because we knew the gravity of what was going on that day. And I remember I signed in on the grandstand and went and sat on the start line and just waited for everyone to come around me and just made sure that I was in the breakaway. I remember everything about that day. And there's not so many days that you truly can remember from start to finish from when you wake up to go to bed. And we won that day. We almost won that day. We had the time trial in Milan the next day. But it was fantastic.
Well, as a rider, when you know a climb like that is on the schedule, and it's coming up at some point in the race, when do you really start thinking about it? Is it the night before, a couple of days before? When does it really start to register that you're about to do that climb?
I mean, so many different things go on throughout a Grand Tour. I mean, that day was always looming. I mean, everyone knew about that from when they told us the route of the Giro for that year. I mean, that day had, I think, 6,000 meters of climbing, so over 20,000 feet of climbing. So I've never done a day like that, and obviously I'll never do a day like that ever again. So that was just insane. So I think we always had that in the back of our minds, but I never thought in a million years that we would ever be on the precipice of winning the Giro with the team that year at that point in time. So I really didn't pay that much, to be honest with you, until really the night before.
All right, number one best climb in the mind of Christian Vande Velde is indeed the Stelvio, but some controversy.
No, there's a lot.
No Alpe d'Huez on his top 5 list.
Gavia, I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot out there.
All right,
Angleroo, we left Spain completely out of this.
There is a lot on a list that anyone would compile. What is your list? Let us know in the comments section here below on In the Saddle.